This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this 30-minute webinar where I'm going to talk to you about the changes to the ISTQB Advanced Test Analyst syllabus. And this is a webinar that we had originally scheduled for yesterday, but I had an internet outage, so technology got in the way. So we've rescheduled today. So thanks for coming to this meeting. So just a little bit who I am. So I'm John Young. I'm one of the principal trainers at TSG Training. I've been involved in software testing and software quality for quite a few years now. And I've been involved in delivering ISTQB training since the scheme started in 2006. So you could say I've got a few miles on the clock. I've been around a while. So what we're going to talk about today, my agenda for this session is I'm going to explain to you what's new, what's changed about the test analyst, the advanced test analyst syllabus in the 3.1 version. So I'm going to give you a high-level summary. I'm going to explain to you what's different in terms of the learning objectives, the course content and structure. And once I've talked you through that, then I'm going to hopefully explain to you why the qualifications is as relevant today as it's ever been. And once I've given you that overall description, I'm going to do a mini lesson. So I'm just going to give you an extract from part of the course. I'm going to talk to you about Perwise testing, and I'll show you both the manual application of the technique, and I'll show you how we can use Perwise for larger scale problems with the tool. And I'll wrap this session up with just an illustration of where the advanced qualification fits on your career paths. And then I'll open things up to questions and answers. So if it's okay for you, if you can keep your microphones muted while I talk to the main presentation, I'm quite happy to deal with anything in the final session, so in the Q&A element. So let's talk about what's changed. In fact, I was going to start by explaining about why it's changed. So the Advanced Test Analyst syllabus was first published in 2012. So it went for 7 years in its original form. Well, actually, there was a minor change in there. So we had version 2. Then in 2019, ISTQB went through a refinement of the syllabus, and this was the first really serious major update since the initial advanced syllabus was published in 2012. So the aim of the update in 2019, which sometimes you get referred to as version 2019 and sometimes you get referred to as version 3.0, and ISTQB have decided to from now on use the version numbers rather than the year of the launch of the syllabus. But the main aim of the reorganization and update was, first of all, to align all our teaching with the updated foundation. So 2018 was a substantial change to the foundation, and there were a number of things where test process and terminology and fine details had not really been updated. So 2018 allowed the syllabus to be aligned, so we've got consistency for people on the foundation students when they're doing advanced. But also there's been a lot of feedback over the years about was it possible to align the advanced courses with a similar length and duration, and there was feedback that some of the techniques and some of the roles that were described in the 2012 syllabus were not always used in common practice, and agile practices have moved on quite a bit since the original syllabus was defined. So it was an opportunity to get things aligned with more common practice, but also to get the course duration consistent with things like Advanced Technical Test Analyst, which was a 3-day course. So a lot of the advanced courses are now 3 days in duration. So this is now of a similar length. There was a minor update made earlier this year, and the section on one of the techniques, decision table testing, that was rewritten. And again, it's more in alignment with common practice. And there were some changes in some of the wording in the syllabus, just particularly when being read by people where English wasn't their first language, to get the language more clear. So the reason it was changed was to reflect on where we are in the industry, and particularly feedback from the testing community. So what's changed? The specifics. Well, first thing is, as I mentioned earlier on, the course has been reduced by a day. So we've now got 1 day less of people being out the classroom. Not out the classroom, out the workplace. So we've got a more focused duration. So there's a day less teaching. Now, to make that work and not be rushed, the syllabus has had a significant reduction in the learning objectives. So there are fewer learning objectives. So 11 learning objectives have been removed. And in terms of the content, now there's been significant removals and additions and a lot more explicit detail added, which makes it easier for people looking at the syllabus, and certainly makes it clearer for people preparing for the exam, exactly what's expected of them. Now, if the syllabus has changed and the scope reduction has changed, then the exam also has been refactored. So we've got the same format of exam, so it's still a multiple choice scenario-based exam, but it's also now being aligned with things like the technical test analyst syllabus. So it's now an hour shorter, and there have been a fewer questions. So now it's a 2-hour exam with 40 questions. So less time in the classroom, exam of a shorter duration, a fewer number of questions. Now, to do that, make this work, the syllabus team did then look at each individual specific topic. And the general result of the realignment is that most topics have less time. So if we compare with the 2012 syllabus, then test process has now been reduced by 150 minutes. Test management and risk-based testing is now down to 30, has been reduced by 30 minutes. Test techniques is also a shorter duration, from 825 minutes to 630 minutes. And that's been done by removing some of the less commonly used techniques. But software quality characteristics has been increased. So we've got more focus there. Reviews have been reduced in content. The section on defect management has been removed because it's effectively, it was repeating what was covered in the foundation. And the test tools and automation section has been increased. So most sections, less time, but where it's relevant to the test analyst role, then more time has been allocated. So if I go into the specifics of the content, now in terms of each of the chapters, then the test analyst's task and the test process, that's now completely aligned to the 2018 foundation syllabus. The test analyst role in risk-based testing, there was a lot in the previous syllabus of overlap with the foundation, and aspects that are test management relevant have been removed because that's not really relevant to the test analyst role. Now, test techniques, decision table testing has been updated and was again rewritten in this year. So it's much more aligned now with decision tables that we use in not just logical decisions, but it's an extension really of what we can do with equivalence partitioning as well. State transition testing has been extended, more detail there, as has use case testing. And equivalence partitioning has been refined so that now we've done more detail. There is no detail now about how you deal with multiple parameter situations. Boundary value analysis is now completely consistent with the 2018 foundation. Now, Perwise technique, which I'll do a mini lesson on in a little while, that's been refined. So it's reflecting the tool support that people use these days, and the less commonly used techniques, the techniques that are a bit more esoteric, they've been removed from the syllabus. But we do still have experience-based testing because that's just as relevant today as it's ever been. Now, the section chapter 4 on software quality characteristics, that's had more detail added to make it consistent with the ISO 25010 standard and its terminology. Now, reviews has been refined so that it's been simplified. So we're now just mainly focusing on the kind of specifications test analysts see. And that's also including user stories. And the section on test tools and automation, that's been extended. So we've got some more focus on the test analyst role in putting together a keyword-driven approach and the division of responsibility between what the test analyst does and what the automation engineer and the technical tester does. So that's an overview of the main differences in detail. Now, the qualification is just as relevant today. The topics we're covering in the course are just as relevant today. The emphasis nowadays is much more on people moving towards DevOps and agile methods of working, but the emphasis now is on test engineering roles. And as a test engineer, you need a completely broad spectrum of skills. So the technical white box testing on its own isn't really enough. We need good black box testing skills so that we can know how to engineer tests rather than just creating tests purely based on product knowledge and experience. So a lot of agile DevOps started to move more towards model-based testing approaches. And in model-based testing approaches, the systematic techniques we cover in the course, decision table testing, state transition testing particularly, are the building blocks for most model-based approaches. So having those skills helps you as a test analyst to be able to actually construct the models if necessary, but probably more important is to provide critical feedback so that we make sure if we're using models, the models don't have discrepancies, they don't introduce defects that otherwise we could, or rather remove the defects that if we keep them in, we end up with more rework later in the development process or in live. So it's really important that we get the ability to take the written requirements, get them into some unambiguous format. So that, as this last little bullet point there, in the past, people have relied on test analysts being more product experts or product domain experts who are able to create a test based on their instincts and intuition. Now, as we're going towards an engineering approach, if we're trying to move into from manual to automated testing, then we need the systematic approaches that we're covering in this course to help get ourselves into a good pre-state for then moving things towards more functional automation, if that's an important part of your project. But even if we're doing manual testing, it allows us to have our manual tests focused on the right things and quicker and clearer, and get feedback quicker and clear, because we can create these much easier to interpret, or rather clearer, unambiguous interpretations of otherwise things that are verbal requirements often. So that's just a little bit about why, as you might guess, in my opinion, test analysis skills are just as relevant today as they've ever been. So I'm just going to give you a little mini lesson from a part of the course. I'm going to talk about Perwise testing, which is a technique that's really useful when we've got situations with a lot of potential test inputs. So imagine we've got a situation where we're looking at a new web application, and through discussion with our stakeholders, we've identified some possible configuration options. So let's say the device could be, we're going to use it on a desktop or a mobile or a tablet, but the browsers we're going to use could be Safari and Edge and Chrome, and maybe we're looking at either Windows or Android as the operating systems. Now, this isn't a big problem, but if I wanted to test every configuration option, I would need 18 possible tests. So Perwise is a technique that takes into consideration more about how can I find defects than how can I prove correctness. So one thing is that if we look at the configuration, if any one of these configuration options caused a problem, so for example, the problem doesn't work on a desktop, we'd refer to that as a single mode defect. So it's the desktop that's wrong, and any test technique such as equivalence partitioning would find that defect. But if we looked at configurations that combined more than one thing, then if we found that it's actually a combination of, for example, a tabloid with Android, sorry, there's a Freudian slip, tablet with Android. If the problem was two things together that caused the problem, we would call that a dual mode or double mode failure. And when people have looked through causal analysis at the nature of defects on systems, there's a reasonably strong argument from evidence that most of the software defects that you get are either down to single mode failures or these double mode failures. It's one element interacting with another element that causes the problem. So Perwise testing is a technique that exploits this rationale. Though rather than trying to test every possible permutation, what we'll focus on is a set of tests that will try to find the double mode defects. And that means not trying to do every possible permutation, but do every pairing of parameters. And that wouldn't need 18 tests. That would need far fewer. So the Perwise technique is a method of combination of elements to try to cover all the per combinations. So first thing is I'm going to demo this using a whiteboard and show you how we do this technique manually. So for that, I'm going to just switch to Microsoft Whiteboard. So I've just transcribed the problem. I've written it in hand, so I'm afraid you've got my bad handwriting here. So we've got our three variables: device, browser, and operating system. So the first thing I use in this technique is I'm going to create a set of an inventory of pairings. So the first pairing would be device and browser. The second pairing would be device and operating system. And the third pairing would be browser and operating system. So my device options I've got are desktop, and my browsers are Safari. So I'm just going to write DT, so desktop and Safari. I've got desktop and Edge, and I've got desktop and Chrome. But my other device is mobile with Safari and Edge and Chrome. Now, if I look at device and operating system, so again, I've got my desktop and I've got two operating systems. So I've got desktop and Windows, or I've got desktop and Android. But I can look also at my devices. So I've also got my, I just realized I've forgotten to put tablets in here. So if I write tablet as well, and I've got my Safari and Edge and Chrome. Now here I've got device, so I've got mobile with Windows and with Android, and I've got my tablet with Windows and Android, and my browsers and operating system. So my browsers were Safari with Windows, and my browsers were Edge, and my other browser was Chrome. So I've got Safari with Windows, Edge with Windows, Chrome with Windows, and then I've got Safari with Android. I've got Safari with, not Safari, Edge and Chrome with Android. So this is the mechanical part of the process, the first part of the process. And what I'm going to do now, just to make these clearer for myself, I'm just going to number them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I've got 21 per combinations. So these pairings are the pairings that are going to induce a dual, potentially invoke a dual mode failure. So now I've got my coverage items, my pers, then the next part of the process is to create my test cases. Now a test case table is going to be made up of device and browser and operating system. So what I'd do here is I would just say, okay, then if I'm going to create test cases here, then I need at least 9 test cases because I've got to cover the device and browser combinations. So if I said, right, my first test case is going to be desktop and then mobile and then tablet, and that's going to be with Safari and Edge and Chrome and Safari and Edge and Chrome and Safari and Edge and Chrome. So these are my potential test cases. Then with this first, so there's my test cases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I can cross off these pairings. What happens is I now add my operating system. If I add Windows to this, I can now say I've covered desktop and Safari, that's pairing number 1, but I've also now covered desktop and Windows, that's pairing number 10, and I've covered Safari and Windows, that's pairing number 16. So in my next test, I'm going to put Android. And if I put Android here, I'm going to cover, apart from desktop and Edge, which is pairing number 2, I can now cover off desktop and Android, which is pairing number 11, and Edge and Android, which is pairing number 20. So I have done desktop and Safari, desktop and Edge. I've got desktop and Chrome. So if I put Windows in here, I've got desktop and Windows, which I've already covered, but I've now got Chrome and Windows, 18's been covered. So I've now covered desktop with Windows, desktop with Android, and I've covered Safari and Windows, Safari and Windows, Safari and Windows, and Chrome and Windows. So I've got to do my mobile pairing. So if I put Windows in here, I'm now covering pairing number 12, mobile and Windows, and I've covered Safari and Windows. So if I put Android here, I'm going to cover mobile and Android, that's pairing 13, and Safari and Android, which is pairing 19. And I've now covered my mobile combinations, and I've covered my Chrome and Windows, Chrome and Android. So I could pick whatever I want in test 6, but I'm now going to look at, I'm going to move to test case 7. So if I put Windows in 7, I'm now covering tablet and Windows and Safari and Windows, which I've already covered. I need to cover tablet and Android. So if I put Android in here, then I've covered tablet and Android and Edge and Android. So what have I got left? I haven't done Edge and Windows. So maybe I should have put Windows in here. So I'm just going to correct that. And if I put Windows in here, I've covered tablet and Windows and Edge and Windows. And then what's not covered? I haven't got Chrome covered with Android yet, or have I? So if I put Android in here, I can cover Chrome and Android. And I've now covered all the per combinations. And I can put anything I like in test case 6, as long as I put a valid value in. If I put an invalid value in, then I'm going to get a single mode failure. So I could pick any of Android or Windows in here. But now I've got a set of 9 tests that cover all the per combinations. Now that's okay for a simple problem. And this manual approach is something you could do by hand, but people have built tools to do this job. So if I showed you a more complex problem. So as the configuration has more options, the variables and more variables have more options, then that mechanical process is going to get trickier. So here I've got a problem, and there are 430 separate permutations. Now, if I try to do this manual, that's going to be a pretty big headache to do. So the thing is, we don't have to. I can actually use a tool to do this. So what I've done is I've just taken these parameters: web server, browser, operating system, video player, and format, and I've created a text file. And here we've got the different options. So this, I'm going to use a tool called Pict. And what Pict requires is me to just put the problem into a text format. See, the hash marks here work like comments in code. So the comments won't be processed. Each variable is simply a colon, indicates a variable, and the commas represent the options. So it's a very simple file to set up. It reflects the input values. And I've got a command line tool called Pict, and it's something you can get if you, I'll write on the slide in a second, one of the places you can find this. And all I need to do in this tool is type the command Pict. It's a command line tool. Name the file I want to process. So in this case, it's webinar underscore demo.txt, and then pipe it. So use this caret to pipe it out to file, and I'm going to call the file demo1.xls, and it's just created a file for me. So can you see at the top of the demo1.xls just been produced? And if I open that spreadsheet, then there is a set of Perwise tests. There's my web server, my browser, my operating system, my video player, my formats. Now, there's 18 rows. There's 17 test cases. And those 17 test cases will give me 100% Perwise coverage. And that's a set of tests using valid values that are most likely to induce a failure in the software. So you can't use Perwise as the only technique, but it's a really good supplementary technique to help us manage risk. So that was just a quick demo of a tool you can use to apply Perwise on a reasonably realistic, substantial problem. Just aware of time, and as always, when I do a demo, I end up overrunning. So we do a lot more in the advanced course than just Perwise, but that was just a quick taster. So Advanced Test Analyst on career paths. So at TSG, we've got a career program for people from apprentice, juniors, all the way through to senior consultants. And we usually place Advanced Test Analyst as either the kind of thing you do towards the end of your training as a junior into the test engineer role, or when moving from a test engineer into a senior role. This is usually one of the things we'd see as an important part of the skill set. You really need to have done your foundation first. Well, it's a prerequisite for the exam, but also I think to give yourself that background, and then you can see this is a building block for a lot of the more senior roles. So just aware of time. So has anybody got any questions? Well, okay, I'm hoping for that. That means that I've answered as I go along the way. So thank you very much for joining and listening to me as I talk about this qualification. So I hope to see you sometime in the future. Now, other courses that tie into the test engineer role that you might find of interest would be the ISTQB Advanced Technical Test Analyst course, but also the Advanced Test Automation Engineer. These are good steps on the route for people who are interested in the test engineering role. Well, if you've got no other questions, I'm going to say thank you very much. So anybody got anything they want to ask?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking your time out for your lunch to hear this, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.